Welcome, one and all, to the rush. It is Tuesday. It is Tuesday, folks, the 9th of November 2021. My name is Randolph Crucial. I want to say thank you very much for joining us here on the rush this evening. To those persons joining us internationally, in the region, and right here in Guyana, thank you very much for tuning in to the rush. We have two big stories to unpack today, and we're going to be joined a little later on by the Deputy Mayor, Mr. Mentor, to unpack what is happening there at City Hall and the local government commission, that is. But before that, we are going to be talking about the Ministry of Finance, and we're going to be having our guest, former Minister of Finance, Mr. Winston Jordon, to unpack with us this evening. It seems to be that there's a back and forth between the right letters are being written, things are being said, people are being accused. We're going to get to the bottom of it. That is what we do here on the program. We unpack the credible and valid information here. Thank you very much for tuning in. You know we like to start the right way, folks. Let us know where you're joining us from. As you put that in the comment section, we are going to get ready to unpack the credible and valid information, folks. Let's unpack.
One time for the bass, alright. Back in the day we used to live Charlotte Street. Just learn to walk and speak. Me woulda grab a bucket, 2 stick of milk in and gone in the yard and beat. Miss Paul used to suck up she teeth. We didn't kick as the music sweet. You could hear me little voice in Regent Street, but I'm still in the game. On the stage I'm keeping the flame. Used to jump with Leon and Shane. We used to make enough noise in the neighborhood. Get vexed and call over Dwayne. Tell them music run in me vein. Yesterday.
Right, we're back, folks. Still in the game, of course. Shout out to our friend there, Crazy Ace, for that song. But we're getting ready, folks, to unpack some credible and valid information before we get going with the meat of the evening. We're going to say, we want to say good evening to all of you who take time out of your evenings to join us and let us know where you're joining us from. Right, Canada is in the house. Thank you very much, British Virgin Islands. Well, that village. Well, that dear region number 5. Rosie saying that we need to get ready. Hurry up, sorry, and unpack the fraudulent PPP. We unpack them out of government. That's what we need to do. We need to let them unpack. We need to pack and actually go. Right. And King, thank you very much for tuning in. Let us know where you're joining us from. Barbados in the house. As you come in, folks, do not be afraid to share the live stream because, let others know that you're in the rush and we're ready to unpack some credible and valid information. As I said, we're going to be joined by former Minister of Finance, Mr. Winston Jordon, in just a minute. And he is going to help us unpack what is happening there at the Ministry of Finance. We've been seeing a number of things in the newspapers, responses, via letters, but we're going to take the meat of the issue. We're going to try and strip away the noise and let us understand what is really happening there at the Ministry of Finance. We're going to be joined by him in just a few minutes. Florida's in the house. Thank you very much for tuning in. Share the live stream, folks. Share the live stream as we share on social media, Facebook, on YouTube, wherever you're looking at. If you're looking at us on YouTube, folks, remember, do not leave without subscribing. When you subscribe and you hit that notification bell, you are aware of every single time we're on. Whenever we're on, you get a notification. Same with Facebook. Like the page. Once you like the page, you will be able to get notifications when we are on. So share, folks. Share. Boxing is in the house. Bronx, New York, North Ranville, Cayenne, Florida, Linden, Belmore, and New York. Thank you very much. Barbados again tuning in. Watching from Rizrock, Linden, Rizrock in the west side, Grove, East Bank, Demerara. Thank you very much for tuning in. Georgia is in the house. As you come in, folks, we don't want to. Toronto is in the house. We don't want to start sharing the credible and valid information before we give others an opportunity to come in. So you share the live stream. Let your friends and family know that we're ready to go. St. Lucia, Brooklyn. Good evening to you. Albert Morgan says, good evening, Randy, and all the legitimate viewers and the family. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those persons who are coming in. Texas, Cleveland, Ohio. Welcome in, folks. Florida again. Thank you very much for being a part of the program, folks. Thank you very much for being a part of the program. Share the live stream. Share the live stream as we go. Right? Diamond is in the house. Right, folks. Let me just start the ball rolling here. As I said, we're going to be talking about what is happening here at the Ministry of Finance, but we see a lot of things happening. I opened the papers today and I saw a large contract going to a company that has a front man, so to speak, or front people that we know very well from the entertainment industry. And on another program, we are going to kind of dig into that and ask a question about the procurement process and procedures that we see that we or the lack of those processes and procedures. And we see a lot of contracts being given out. At the same time, we see efforts being made to slow down the work of the Public Accounts Committee, when the APNU AFC would have been pushing to increase the number of days that the Public Accounts Committee meets. We have efforts by the PPP to say, no, hold on. If you are so into transparency, if you are so transparent and you're doing everything above board, then you should welcome the fact that the Public Accounts Committee is looking to ensure that the funds, the accounts of this country is being scrutinized properly, and they have enough time to do it, because I know that there is a lot, and we will talk about a bit of that when we welcome our guests in just a few minutes. We'll be just giving some more persons another opportunity to come in on the program as we share. We are sharing at a few more places too. Right. Just ensure that we share at a few more places so we give our guests an opportunity to come through. Right? Yes, folks. Welcome. Good. I think it's time we go, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in. Let me just intro this story like this, folks. I want to read an excerpt from, and I'll give you what the ministry, first of all. And, I don't want to dig too deep in it before we get our guests coming on. Right? But it starts out, the Ministry of Finance, folks, issued a press statement saying that the attention of the Ministry of Finance has been drawn to a number of pronouncements made by former Minister of Finance Winston Jordon during his increasingly frequent foray into the media in recent times. And so they're concerned about the statements being made by the former Minister of Finance. And we'll ask him why is it that his statements would have made them so concerned. But that release, folks, went into a number of things, many of which we can't necessarily go into now, or you could try and go into with the minister. But I take note of the tone of the release, first of all, because I want to deal with that, and the attacking nature of the release. It seems as though the release was framed in such a way, and it didn't say, what was interesting for me is that it didn't say that it came from the minister, it came from the ministry, but I guess if it comes from the minister has to take responsibility. But then Mr. Jordon, of course, responded, and we're going to talk to him. I don't want to preempt what he is going to say. Let's welcome him in right now to the program. Good evening, sir.
Hey, good evening, Randy. Good evening, long time.
Right. Thank you very much for being a part of the rush. Now, let me just say this. I probably didn't do the introduction justice in terms of framing what has been happening. I know there's been a number of letters written from yourself and the Ministry of Finance, but maybe you can give our viewers a better idea of what is taking place, because we're seeing a lot of letter writing back and forth. But what really is the meat of the issue?
Well, I myself struggled to find out where this press statement as we say, come out from left field, so to speak.
Yeah.
But if you would have checked yesterday, Tablet News and Kaito News at least
Yes.
carried a letter from me in which I was referencing an editorial done by Tablet News last week, Saturday, kind of loan. And for those who don't know, earlier this year, apparently, a senior official from the Ministry of Finance had approached the Chinese government via the local ambassador for loan to 1.5 billion US dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the figure. You having an official approaching a sovereign government for loans of 1.5 billion US dollars.
Yes.
Writing a letter to the and then horrors of horrors, he's copying this letter to the president of the country, the vice president of the country, his own senior minister, and two other ministers. As I said, Jai Sinclair would be turning in our grave to understand the depths to which we have sunk. And so in their response, they attached 3 letters that he ostensibly would have written while I was minister and claimed I was sleepwalker. I didn't know. These 3 letters are totally irrelevant. You can read them and you will see they're totally irrelevant and they pale into insignificance compared to what we're dealing with today, 1.5 billion US dollars. I think, but the affront for me and for all right-thinking people and for all those people who, who was old as me and older and around my age, is to see an official writing a foreign government and copying it to the president, president of the country,
Unheard of.
and the vice of the country, and his own minister.
Minister Jordon, I think that is what ruffled some feathers in the PPP, because as we would have said before, the letter that came out from the ministry took an attacking tone, right? And let me just go down to the bottom of the letter and I'll read part of your response, right? If I can go down to the bottom of the letter, right? Where they, they dealt with some of the issues that they thought they rebutted. Right, but then they ended the letter by saying it would appear that the APNU AFC needs Winston Jordon to crawl out every now and then to ramble on economic matters. Right? Sadly for them, his occasional foray serves more to discredit them than reinforce their now unshakable reputation of incompetence and dishonesty. Now, painting you with that brush, and I will put this to you, many in this country know that you would have worked under the PPP. You would have worked under the PPP administration for many years in that budget office. And it is amusing that they would try to paint you with such a brush. And even, let's take the conversation even further. As you said in your response, this is why people don't comment on issues of national interest, because the attacks that come after. Your thoughts?
Yes, exactly, Randy. I mean, I found it to be amusing. I mean, one person called me and said that particular part is libelous and you should sue them. I said, man, I ain't got no time to waste, essentially. But I worked almost all my life in the Ministry of Finance. I work with various governments, PPP, PNC, and all these kinds of stories. None has questioned my integrity, none has questioned my competence, and so on. But what I've written in the letter of yesterday must touch a nerve, because I did facts. I don't have time to mudsling, and I refuse in my latest response to dignify anything that was said in that letter. And that will have pushed me into the gutter of mudslinging. I wish in all my professional life I have not engaged in such and I wouldn't do it at this late stage.
Yeah.
Well,
Let me read for the audience. You said, I have no intention of responding to the attacks. I do not wish to reduce myself to the mudslinging that characterizes those who do not want to deal with the issue and remain with cream at the top, contributing to debates and discussions in a civil and respectful manner. So let's get into those actual debates and numbers, because we've spoken about the attacks, and this characterizes the PPP, as you said, and I find it very disturbing as someone who wants to have those debates on national issue, that persons are attacked if they highlight something. But let's go, and we will highlight it anyhow. Let's talk about the meat of the issue. So you've highlighted the fact that this letter for this loan is something that unheard of. You also spoke about the Natural Resource Fund and that act. Let's dig into that and see.
Yes, well, in fact, the letter had three broad topic areas.
Yes.
About the letter and who wrote the letter and so on. Then we had the issue of the accumulation of debt.
Yes.
Right? The Starbuck News editorial was referencing the rapid accumulation of debt, and that was about the third editorial in about less than a year that Starbuck News would have done pertaining to this rapid accumulation of debt. And it's not only Starbuck News that is concerned. I think last week or just the week before, Kaito News also carried an editorial called Binging on Debt.
Yep.
Right? Binging on debt. So a number of concerns are being raised about this rapid accumulation of debt, both locally and internationally. And so I followed up Starbuck News's editorial on the debt part by pointing out this issue about the $1.5 billion that they are seeking, plus the $900 million that coming from the Islamic Development Bank, plus the regular borrowing that is being done from the IDB into the American Development Bank, the World Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, plus Ali, in one of his press conferences, I think out of Dubai, says that the government exploring possibilities of borrowing from the sovereign wealth funds of the United Arab Emirates and Kuwait. Plus, a month or two ago, they made a disclosure that they had met with the Austrian officials, and they were looking at possibilities of collaborating with these Austrian officials in the health sector. Well, I had news for them, because on a program that I do on every Thursday on CAMS TV, I referenced the fact that particular Austrian deal is a non-starter. And there was Jagdio, I think, last week or so on, indicating that the deal is a non-starter. So it's nothing new. But if they used to talk to the opposition and so forth, they will save themselves a lot of grief. Because we've been there, done that before. The Austrian deal, we signed an MOU with the Austrian government when they came down here through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But when we came down to the nitty-gritty about negotiating, I told them we will never take such a deal. Never take such a deal. So the issue was that I had pointed out that when we looked at the $2.9 billion US dollars that the stock of debt was at the mid-year, and when all of these known deals, we were looking at a debt stock of about $5.3 billion US dollars.
Wow.
Couple of years.
Wow.
And it's an astonishing development, and we're not counting the gas to shore, whose price was originally tagged at $900 million. But now, from Jagdio's mouth, it will be more. The word slightly is being used, it'll be slightly more, but it will be more.
Yes.
So, now, this $900 million is being paid for by foregone revenues that should have come to the Natural Resource Fund, and we can come to that. So now, the revenues that should have come to the Natural Resource Fund are being diverted to repay for this pipeline that Exxon is doing, right? So that is a worry by itself. That's $1 billion. Then you have this bridge and this Amalia Falls.
Yes.
These are debts These are debts. Don't let people fool you. These are debts. A design, build, operate for the bridge is a debt in this sense. When the Chinese builder goes to find the money to build this bridge, okay, he will have to repay it at certain level of interest rate. Then he will have to add his profit and so forth. So by the time you get to a tariff to cross this bridge, you will not be able to pay it as the average Guyanese consumer. So the government will have to step in and subsidize. The government will have to step in and pay the difference between the tariff that will be charged to the consumer, tariff that should have been charged. And that will have to be paid by the government. So technically it's a debt. And this is the same story that we have with the Borby's Bridge. But we might have been able to get away with the Borby's Bridge. You're not going to be able to get away with this Chinese contractor. And then you have also the Amalia Falls. When they were going to the loan for the loan of 1.5 billion, indicated in the letter was $750 million roughly for the Amalia Falls. Now you're hearing Jagio say, we don't need the 750 anymore. We don't need the 750. That we find a Chinese company that is going to build and operate this Amalia Falls for 20 years. And all that is going to happen is that they're going to sell power to GPL for no more than, I think it was 11 cents or something like that. For no more than 11 cents. And as I said on that program, this thing is so sweet. This thing is so sweet that the government should find more of these kinds of Chinese contractors who will be able to do such a thing. But in reality, we know this is not going to happen. So the point I'm making on the debt is that a large number of debt accumulating right before your eyes, but nobody's paying attention to it. Nobody's paying attention to these deals that are being struck and the rapid and massive borrowing. Everybody is willing to lend Guyana money on the strength that the revenues that are going to come will be able to pay back. And that brings us now to the Natural Resource Fund. Because the Natural Resource Fund is there, accumulating monies, and the government is refusing to activate the Natural Resource Fund. And like I said, take this bridge, $256 million. This bridge is going to take 2.5 to 3 years to build. By the end of that period, there will be over $1 billion plus, $2 billion probably, in the Natural Resource Fund. So why are you using Chinese money, expensive Chinese money, to build this bridge when the government can build the bridge from the Natural Resource Fund? That is one of the reasons why the Natural Resource Fund was set up. Why are you using the Chinese money when you could use your natural resource money now to contract a design that all Chinese can be proud of?
And so the myth of it, Minister, is that, you know, the average man hearing all of these thing about debt and money and billions of dollars, the issue that somebody brought up the other day, just like you were talking about there, you're going to borrow money to build the bridge. Just use the bridge for an example. As you said, it is coming in the form of a loan. Now that money will attract interest, and so using your own money would have been cheaper. Essentially, in the grand scheme of things, using your own money would have been cheaper. Now, why is it that this government refuses to tap into the Natural Resource Fund that we have? Why do you think that is?
They refuse. They claim that they refuse. Okay, but this thing has two angles. The first angle is this: if they activate the Natural Resource Fund, the stringencies and transparencies and accountability inherent in the Natural Resource Fund Act is not the same as when they go out and borrow.
Okay.
You see, they don't have any stringency about going out and borrow beyond the cap. Beyond the cap. And even that cap, they can go to Parliament and expand it how large they want it, as they did earlier this year, I think it was.
Yes.
So they don't have that stringency. So it.
I think your microphone went, sir.
Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
you're back with us. Go ahead.
It pays them to borrow rather than going to the Natural Resource Fund. Meanwhile, they are hoping to amend the Natural Resource Fund to give them the freedom and to remove the strictures from the Natural Resource Fund so that they could tap in there whenever they feel like. That is essentially what is happening. And so that is what my letter was all about. When you read the President of the Ministry of Finance, all they did was attack me.
Yeah. How concerned do we need to be as citizens that this government is borrowing, so to speak, against that money in the Natural Resource Fund? They're saying to people who are willing to lend, look, we will by X time we will have X billion in the Natural Resource Fund, so we will be able to pay you back. So essentially, you're using money from the Natural Resource Fund through the back door. How concerned should Guyanese citizens be that this money is being essentially borrowed against, and we're borrowing money against this money, and we might end up in a situation where we go to the Natural Resource Fund, but we can't use anything from it because we got to pay back loans with all of them. How concerned should we be?
Radhi, you should be very, very concerned. Look, one, the 2020 budget of the PPP had a deficit of close to 90 billion Guyana dollars. The 2021 budget, based on the mid-year forecast, is going to have a deficit, a revised deficit close to $100 billion. So in just over a year, you would have lost almost 200 billion, 190 billion. Wow. That is almost $1 billion in just over 1 year in debt. And that is more than twice the amount presently in the Natural Resource Fund.
Wow.
So you're borrowing like you're heading Gordon against, as you said, the Natural Resource Fund. The reality is, in the present legislation, is that can't happen. The Natural Resource Fund receipts cannot be used to guarantee loans. So it cannot be used to finance the deficit of the central government. The resources of the Natural Resource Fund, as it relates to the objective of development, national development, have to have the projects identified by the Parliament. And the funds to flow to these projects must be identified separately in the budget. In other words, you can't commingle Natural Resource Funds monies to finance other expenditure in the budget.
Or to finance your loans that you took.
You're right. You can. So if you agree to build the Demerara Harbour Bridge, and this has been approved by the Parliament for funding from the Natural Resource Fund, then the Demerara Harbour Bridge financing will have to show specifically as a transparent project funding coming from the Natural Resource Fund. And only those funds from the Natural Resource Fund can go to the Demerara Harbour Bridge. They cannot be diverted to the Amalia Falls, for example.
You know what I'm concerned about, Foreign Minister? That we see these projects happening, right? We see these projects being borrowed for these big projects to happen. And, somebody asked me the other day, so are they borrowing money to do projects to improve the lives of Guyanese people? Do we see any big money being borrowed for social development, so to speak? Because what might happen, as somebody said, that we might have a lot of big buildings and a lot of big casinos and hotels going up, but the average man who nothing was directed to will stand and look at them and can't afford even a room. So how are they directing those monies that they're borrowing towards the improvement of the lives of Guyanese people?
But Randy, this is also the other major problem. You know, somebody goes somewhere. You go to Dubai. Somebody talks about maybe improving ports. Good, and they're gonna be able to give you $1 billion US. You agree to the project. The point is that you don't have a plan in front of you that has been laid out to the people of Guyana that says this is our 10-year development plan, and in this plan on the economic side, we will be doing this road linkages and so forth, this port linkages, these boat linkages. On the social side, we're going to be doing these scholarship programs because we know we're going to have a deficit in skills in these areas and so on. You don't have that planned out. You don't have that planned out. Where in the government's scheme of things did they come up that they can go because they reached Austria and they said they are very good in health care and so forth, that you will say, okay, we can consider doing a child and maternity story. Where in the scheme of the development planning is the child and maternity wing or whatever in place? No, it comes up just like that. And we have been dealing with this for too long. You know, somebody goes to India and you wake up and you hear them come back with $80 million for a specialty hospital. We have never discussed a specialty hospital in this country. It's nowhere in the health sector plan. But then somebody goes there and the Indian government agrees to give them 80 million. Then you tout in specialty hospital and making a big noise because the government, when we came in, says this is not a priority for us. What is priority for us is primary health care and so forth. Yeah. You understand? Yeah. This borrowing is not only indiscriminate, but it's not targeted borrowing. It's not targeted borrowing. Plus, we don't seem to appreciate that if you have monies accumulating in the natural resource fund at zero interest rate, almost, because can you imagine 400 or something million US dollars earning less than $1 million US in interest over the last almost 2 years since Forest Oil. It's almost 2 years since Forest Oil. 400 something million US dollars.
Wow.
And that's because the money is stuck in the Federal Reserve Bank, parked there, and getting your usual point something 0.000 something of percent. Now let me show you quickly. If the government were to go ahead and borrow, say, from one of the sovereign wealth funds, United Arab Emirates or Kuwait, they'll have to borrow from at any rate between 4 and 5%.
Oh boy.
You will borrow money at 4 and 5 because this is what our sovereign wealth fund will do. When we want to invest our sovereign wealth fund, we want to have a return of about 3.5%, 4%.
Yes. Yes.
Right now we're getting 0.00 of 1%. And now you're talking about going and borrow from sovereign wealth funds where those people are trying to get the maximum returns on their investment. So you're looking at 4 to 5% borrowing from a sovereign wealth fund to do what project that will give you that kind of return. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so there's this haphazard wake up kind of, and it's putting the country in a situation that you're probably too young to know, but we have been down this road before. And climbing out of that valley of debt was long, hard, and torturous. And we're still feeling the effects today in those people who had their incomes decimated through massive devaluations and all kinds of things, as we had to right-size the economy and adjust it throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on. Yeah. You know, and we can't claim, well, oh, you got money coming. Ask Ghana. Ghana did the same thing. They borrowed heavily against future
oil revenue
sources. Then the bottom fell out of oil. And then the bottom fell out of Ghana's development. They were forced into an IMF program. Imagine a newly producing oil state forced into an IMF program.
Wow.
You know, but we talk a good talk about learning the lessons, but we don't walk the walk, right? We don't walk the walk. We abandon every idea about planning and so on, and we splurge in as if there's no tomorrow. But meanwhile, ask the average citizen whether they are better off than they were in 2019.
Yep. And we're gonna come to that. I want to end with that, but before we get to this idea of how the lives of our Guyanese people are being improved in terms of the policies that put in place by the ministry, let's stay here because we heard about all of the borrowing. We heard about this happening, that happening. We know there's a public accounts committee. We know there is parliament for oversight. And, you know, I'm picking up on some of the comments here, and that people believe that the opposition isn't doing enough or what they're supposed to do to stop this. What is your take on that? And given the setup of parliament, what powers the opposition leader or the opposition actually have to stop any of this?
But Randy, the unfortunate thing about Guyana, and I don't know when we're going to be able to change it, is that the government, even if they win by half of a percentage point, seems to suggest that they have 100%.
Yeah.
And on the strength of the opposition, they are able to portray that fact. To be quite honest, right now, I don't think they care two hoots about the opposition, because the opposition is not giving them any sustained pressure. First of all, to come to the table.
The pressure. My thing is, because I look at a simple thing like the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. There was no reason for him to be moved. There was no. It just seemed as if the PPP wanted him removed, and they used their majority to do so. So let's just imagine that the opposition is in a position now to question why this specialty hospital money thing, why this happening, how much power do they actually have in parliament to do anything?
Not much power, Randy. But this does not negate the fact that they must press with all their might, all their might, because once they make cogent and reasoned arguments in the parliament, and then take it outside of the parliament.
Yes.
I mean, parliament right now is a joke. To be quite frank, parliaments in Guyana have always been a joke, simply because the opposition really can blow hot and blow cold, but once there's a simple majority required, the government will use a simple majority. And that is why wherever above simple majority is required, not much has been achieved in this country.
Yeah.
People don't go down that road where they got, for example, people blame the coalition for not doing constitutional reform. And they can't be serious. No constitutional reform in this country can be done without a minimum 2/3 majority.
2/3, yeah.
So if you got a recalcitrant opposition, your hope of getting any constitutional reform is good as dead. That coming up about we said we were going to do constitutional reform and we didn't do it, and all this kind of story. I mean, that is a reality check. That is the way how the business of this country is run. So, like I said, if you don't have a scenario, for example, where a Height, I know that's the most recent one I can remember, where Height would have put pressure on the government and brought them to the table and let them know that the opposition was an opposition to be dealt with and a force to be reckoned with. The government is not going to bother with you. Even as we speak here, you think they record this program and so on. They think Jordon is a nuisance or something, and they're going to paint you with some brush and so on, and as if, I don't know why they feel that this is going to stop me from speaking out where these things are concerned. I mean, you don't speak out, then you may as well just lie down and let the wolves eat you like a sheep.
Yeah.
And this is really unfortunate what is taking place in this country, especially at the time when we should be gung-ho about using our resources, in an appropriate manner.
Yeah.
But it is really, really unfortunate. And here, I would have thought that the good people that you had putting pressure on the coalition, numerous of them crawled out, they would work and so forth. That's all right. That's part of the nature of politics. But they crawl in, allowing this to take place. What is going on at the moment?
Yeah.
So when a person like me, who has some stature in the society, former minister, and before then, director of budget, and been around for quite a while and so forth, longer than almost all, if not all of them, in the Ministry of Finance, they could sling mud at me. People will listen.
Yeah.
People listen. It's concerning them, has been a concern to them, that people are listening to what I'm saying, and they're becoming aware. And this is what, and if you multiply my voice 20 times over out of the 31 that they have in Parliament, 20 times over.
Yeah.
I think it will make a difference. But
I
because
am.
we have democratic voices in the wilderness, they don't get too hoots about I mean, they just see me as a moderation person, and the person who sanctioned that press statement must be grown in that that I would have not worry with it.
Yeah.
I really don't have time to bother with with slinging mud and so forth. Put the
It is,
issues and to deal with it.
yeah, it is a sad situation that we have a parliamentary system that really doesn't give an actual voice. The opposition, of course, will have to go to parliament to have their voices heard, because we're dealing with a PPP government that I believe really don't care. So you could shout at the shout, go on the top of Parliament building and shout if you want. If they intend to do something, they will do it whether you like it or not. So we have a flawed system. We know this, but let's move from that situation to the issue of moving Guyanese lives upwards, bringing them out of a lot of them out of poverty. You are the Minister of Finance. From 2015 to 2020, where we saw significant improvement in the salary of public servants and a number of other fiscal policies and things put in place where people felt as if, the government is actually taking care of me. How we have seen a shift from this. We've seen two budgets now. We haven't heard anything about, and we're coming down to December. We haven't heard anything, whisper from the government yet about what they're doing to raise the salaries of public servants. And not to mention, we haven't heard anything about these social programs that lift people out of poverty. Your take on that, and how do we move? How do we move as citizens with a government like this?
Well, you see, again, the government, the government knows how to, I call it, use people.
Mm-hmm.
The government has no coherent social program, whether it's ameliorative or poverty reduction program.
They have cash grants too.
And don't point to any one
cash grant
rice cash trans $25,000 cash. Those are temporary relief programs. You give me the $25,000, I do what I have to do it, and I go back and starve next month or next
month. Your money finish.
There's no attempt to build sustainable social programs that will make a dent into the poverty that we have in this country. And poverty is not only related to those who you see begging in the streets and so forth. Many a time, people who are going to school and going to work, teachers and all this kind of thing, can't afford more than one meal. Can't afford more than one meal. And I'm not even speaking about those who lost their jobs post 2020 August and so forth. You have many, many, many people. I met a police a couple days ago. He stopped me, while I was wondering why. He said, oh, Mr. Harmon, how you do? I said, no, I'm not Harmon. I'm Jordon. Oh yes, the former Minister of Finance and so on. And he started a gaffe and so on. He was telling me some of the conditions that they have to go through right now.
Yes.
The fact that the salaries are so low. He said many a days he don't want to come to work, but how he can feed himself and his family. It was heartbreaking, but I know what he was talking about. And that is why we had begun to put in place from day one, trying to solve this business about salaries, trying to bring relief to other kinds of relief, like income tax relief, like the allowances and so forth. I mean, just in 2019, every time I see a nurse, the nurse says, I always will remember what y'all did for us in 2019.
Yes.
$900 million in new allowances to the medical profession, where some allowances were increased by 3,000-4,000%. That's how long they weren't increased. Yes. And we were looking to do similar things for the joint services, including bringing in special arrangements for the joint services. We were looking to do it also for the public servants who have not seen an increase in their allowances for about 20 years or thereabout, and so forth. Structured and systematic and sustainable. Ask those super cleaners, for example.
Yes.
Ask super cleaners. So they are permanent employees getting at least the minimum wage and are entitled their annuals to pension and all these kinds of things. These were the kinds of things that we were doing, not for one section of the society, but for all those people, all the people in this country. And that turned out to be our Achilles heel. You understand? Because now people are saying, I heard David Hines this morning talking about, it's okay for the government to reward the supporters and so on. Look, if we all go down the road, then it is almost clear as what can happen to certain segments of the population in this. And we have seen it post 2020, August 2020.
We've had a sort of a perfect storm for the poor man. COVID, seeing members of their family, if not them, relieved from their jobs. Many of them who work in the entertainment industry, restaurant industry, sent home because those were closed down. We see public servants being sent home. We had the rapid increase of prices of goods on the market. So you COVID, you have the increase, and of course, we have a government that the policies are not geared to moving them out of that poverty. And they have not said anything about increasing their salaries, but what they have done is giving them at 19,000 or 25,000. So this perfect storm that has the man on the street feeling like, what is really happening to me? Where do you see us going?
Well, listen. There's only so much that people can take. I believe the government knows this. They've gotten away with quite a bit so far. I think they're holding on for a couple more weeks to make maybe another week or two to make some announcement as it relates to
increases,
public service salary increase. They figure that by this coming close to Christmas and so on, it will take the tension out of the situation. But you have a situation in Guyana where people anticipate increase and carry up the price. And that's without a pandemic.
Yes.
Look, my wife came home Saturday and said she cannot believe how much more money she had to spend for a smaller basket of goods.
Yep.
She could not believe, and this is within 1 week. This is within that this is happening. Economics doesn't seem to operate in Guyana. I heard there is some kind of appreciation of the rate, which means long-term prices ought to be better off. But that's not going to happen. With devaluation, prices explode. But appreciation, the reverse, supposed to happen. That is not going to happen if the appreciation of the rate is true. It's not going to happen because in this particular country, prices are sticky downwards. That means that when they go up, it's hard for them to come back down. There's every excuse is being made. And that is why none of the government's programs of relief to the producers and the private sector, none has worked. None.
Yeah, they did roll back some of the import taxes.
Things. The prices remain high. In fact, I read somewhere in the papers where somebody asked the question, when are they going to be getting new stock at these new prices that are based on reduced freight and so on? They will never do it.
Yeah,
they are in this killjoy environment where they don't have to reduce any price.
Yeah,
they do not have to reduce any price.
The taxes were rolled back and reduced, but the customers at the bottom end there, the bottom of it, and they're not feeling the benefit. The money went into the private sector pocket, I guess.
As I said, they don't have the incentive to reduce the prices. You are in a pandemic where supply is fairly constrained.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I going to reduce my price?
Yeah.
In a situation where supply is severely constrained. Why?
Wow.
Why am I going to do it? Makes no sense. It will only make sense If the government, I keep saying, if the government had signed a contract with the GCCI, Private Sector Commission, and so on, indicating what kind of price you expect them to charge for the good for which you were given free removal of taxes and reduction of freight and all these kinds of things.
Yeah.
But if you left it to the private sector man, in a situation where you have severe constraints of supply and transportation and shipping and all these kinds of things, you expect him to be nice to you and say, okay, we're gonna reduce this thing by $10 and sell it. And even when you reduce it by $10, somebody comes, buy up everything, and go somewhere else and retail it for $50.
Right.
It's simple. It's simple behavior, and it's economics at its best.
Yeah.
So I don't understand some of the policies that they have in place.
Yeah. Didn't
understand some of the policies that they have in place at all. So maybe that's why they don't like Winston Jordon.
It's a Jordon. As we break down these things to the people who are looking, I'm happy that you're able to shed some light on these issues. Somebody is asking here, what do you expect? What in terms of percentage increase for those public servants? And as you said, they might be waiting the next few weeks to announce it. What are your expectations?
Well, given they said they put $10 billion there. Mm-hmm. I would estimate after deducting from that 10, possibly a bonus going to the security sector, new persons here. They got a lot of people in there now with fancy contracts and so forth and so on. So maybe about 7-8 billion might be available for distribution, and I would say they should be looking forward to anywhere between 5 and 7%. 5 and 7%.
I think the people are looking forward for like a 15%.
Well, they can't get 15 out of the money that they have. When you look at the wage bill, when you look at the bill and you take 15% of it, it will be more than that 10 billion that they set aside, which have already been using for other things, because it's not $10 billion for payment of increased wages alone.
Yeah.
That $10 billion has all kinds of things in it. Payment of bonus, payment for anybody that they recruit after the budget came in place, like new teachers, new nurses, new doctors, and so on. All those are the new policemen, promotions in the army, in the police, and in the public. All these different things are paid from that head. So it's not the whole 10 billion that is available for distribution for increased wages and salaries.
And this 5 to 7%, as you're predicting now, 7 might be for those persons who are the lower end there. So
they have never encouraged differential increases, so they have always gone across the board, and I don't expect them to do different.
Okay.
They've always gone across the board, exacerbating the gaps between the lower ends and the higher ends. So I don't expect them to go what we were doing in trying to favor the lower end of the scale. I don't expect them to do that at all.
Yeah. These are all
in fact,
things that
with what the coalition did, so I don't expect them to come with differential salary increases.
Yeah. Looking forward as we wrap up our conversation here, quite an interesting one, I must say. As we wrap up our conversation here, we keep seeing oil finds after oil finds, and we know the situation with the borrowing. Guyana 2030. Where do you see us? I know many economists have said that, look, we're heading down the road of a Trinidad or Ghana, but where do you see us, and what do we have to do to avert such a thing?
Well, we already look. Take the Dutch disease that everybody now understands or have an idea of Dutch disease. Look what is happening in Guyana already. Dutch disease. We've got a lot of labor that is now trending towards the oil sector, and agencies to the oil sector. They pay better wages than paid in the public service, that is paid in agriculture and so on. So you have that shift in labor, and the government now using that as an excuse to say that we have to import labor. But here you have significant unemployment, significant underemployment, and every year you're graduating more and more people. who can't find employment. So before we look outside, we have to do something about our own house. And I could tell you, this gold program that they brought in there, that's a reward for certain people for doing certain things. It is of no help to Guyana at the moment. How are you going to put in a gold program when you got the University of Guyana struggling for financing so that they can attract competent, well, not competent, they can attract better lecturers, a more diversified array of lecturers, people coming from overseas and so forth, and a student body that is far more diversified, facilities that are far more diversified and so forth. And University of Ghana has the capacity and the capability to mount many of the programs that they go on with this goal. I call it jail, GAOL, jail program rather than goal. You understand? Because it came out of left field. You have many technical institutes in Guyana, Essequibo Technical Institute, New Amsterdam, GTI. You have Myconi, I believe. You have two on the quarantine. All these
upgrade them.
Linden, LTI, all these, and Regina, all these institutes are starved for resources, and you are leaving them. You are leaving them. Guess what is the latest one? The government signed a loan, I think it's for about $20 million or so, between 18 and 20 million US, to build a tourism hospitality school.
Wow.
They signed this loan, I think it's last year. Then out the left field, you hear Barbados is going to train 6,000 workers for the tourism sector. Now, they didn't put the cost to that because Barbados is not going to do it free. They haven't put the cost to that. They haven't identified who are these 6,000.
Yes.
Tell whether they're going to be transporting these 6,000 by boat or plane or so on to Pomeranian, which is the Barbados tourism and hospitality school, or whether the Barbados will be sending lecturers here and so forth. Get the brain. Get the brain out of the schools. But they haven't said what. They haven't said whether they're going ahead with this building of this school, that they've got a loan from the Caribbean Development Bank for about 20 million US to build the school. You don't know what is the situation with there, but you're talking about 6,000. This was never under anybody's cards, but now you're talking 6,000.
Yeah.
And somebody asked the other day, have they done an audit of the skills required for the petroleum sector? And if they did so, what role is the gold program playing in trying to get some of those skills? Hasn't done. When you look at the gold program, it's a bunch of, listen, I don't want to use the word programs, You teaching engineering, imagine you teaching engineering via what you call it?
Online.
What you call it? Virtual. You teaching
virtual, yes.
In yours teaching you engineer here, or in Germany teaching you engineer. You sit down in front of them and they're teaching you engineer. I mean,
it's like watching a YouTube video, I guess.
A YouTube video, teaching yourself engineering. I mean, it sounds like a joke, but I mean, this is the kind of, this is the kind of thing that you have to go through, and you have to sit down every day you wake up. You want to know what else the government is going to come up with that they never thought about before. And you have to pray now that they don't go on trips anymore, because as soon as they talk to somebody, they come back to some report saying, oh, well, this person is going to train 1,500, and this other one going to train 3,000 people. And all the time, you don't have a manpower.
Yeah.
You don't have a manpower map of the skills available and what are the deficits.
Yeah.
You don't.
Before we go, Mr. Jordon, I know one of the viewers are asking for us to deal with one quick thing. A sour topic. It's supposed to be sweet sugar, which is a sour topic. Supposed to be sweet. And, we've seen people get severance and then get top up on the severance. Then the workers who they're asking, what do we top up to? Because we didn't take the severance, so we deserve some money too. Your thoughts on what is happening now? We see the CES might lose his work because he can't turn the sourness into sweetness. What is happening with Guy Suko? And your general thoughts on the fiasco?
Yeah, well, Randy, I have talked so much on sugar
Well,
before.
we only have a few like 5 minutes. So we condense it and give us a
I'm going to disappoint the person simply because we have talked this so much that I don't think there's anything
nothing
new
else to
that
say.
we could say about it. Essentially, we could only emphasize that the coalition government went well beyond what is expected of it to service an industry that was dead.
Yes.
When it came in, okay, went well beyond. We were pouring monies at the rate of $1 billion per month.
Yeah.
For 3 years into that sector.
Wow.
Till we get costs. We get costs about not doing anything. And you got the arrogance of some of these government ministers now telling you the people are entitled to the 250,000 or how much they're paying, and they don't care, who vexed. That is what is coming out of their mouth now.
Yeah.
So I said, this can only happen, as I said, in a scenario where the government feels that whatever they do, there will be no pushback, or pushback will be so weak as not to them. Really.
I hear you.
But that is where we start.
Well, Mr. Jordan, I want to say thank you very much. I mean, we were supposed to have the deputy mayor on, but I think they've had some technical issues. But I'm happy that we had the entire hour to kind of shed some light on what is happening in our economy, what's happening with our country's resources. And I know that you are a friend of the show, and you'll be back as other issues arise. So we can bring some clarity to our viewers. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Randy. It was a pleasure, and I'll be back as long as you call me and I'm available.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, folks. That was our program, folks. Quite an interesting one this evening. Speaking there with former Minister of Finance, Mr. Winston Jordon, on an array of topics, a wide variety of topics. All of what? Because we are a rich country filled with poor people. And this hasn't happened overnight. But we are even richer now. We are even richer now, and we are finding more and more resources every single day. And how we manage those resources, how we manage the funds that come in from those resources, it's going to be crucial in lifting every single Guyanese out of the state that they're in. And those who need that sort of lifting. So, folks, let's keep our eyes on what is happening with our finances. Of course, on Friday, we have our young economist, Elson Lowe. And, I focus a lot on the economy in my program because I believe this should be the greatest concern to Guyanese people. The greatest of concern to Guyanese people. How our resources and our funds, our monies are managed. Because let me remind you, folks, that it was the PPP who spent 5 years out of power standing in the corner shouting, we know how to manage the economy. We have brilliant economists here who will transform the economy. Let me remind you also that during those 5 years of the APNU AFC, our economy grew exponentially. Year after year of economic growth as we're moving into as an oil-producing country. And we see what is happening now. We see the massive debt that they have amassed in only 464 days, folks. So let us keep our eyes on our oil. Let us keep our eyes on our monies that are coming into our country. And don't be fooled by big buildings and hotels and casinos, because they're not being built for you, the average man. You have to concentrate on what the government is doing to lift you out of poverty. Let us keep our eyes on that. And with those words, I say thank you very much for joining us, folks. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I want to say thanks to those persons who shared the live stream. You can still share the live stream for those persons who will come after and who would like to view If you, of course, have any information you want to share with us, feel free to hit us up on WhatsApp. If you have information you want to share with us, you can send us an email anonymously. Of course, all information is treated with the strictest of confidentiality. Hit us up on the rushgy@gmail.com. The rushgy@gmail.com. That is our email address. Of course, 618-7321 is our number. You can call us or you can message us, WhatsApp us, any information that you have. And if, of course, you want to support the program, support the work that we're doing, we have a PayPal account, therushgy@gmail.com. If you can type that in, you can search and you can support what the work that we're doing here with a small contribution. Of course, we have our MMG accounts also, 618-7321, 6170244. You can definitely be a part of what we're doing and support the work here. Thank you very much for being a part of the program this evening, folks. As I always say, let's continue to work together for national development. My name is Randolph Critchell. I want to say thank you very much to all of you who joined the program this evening. We're getting ready to jump in the ring with Sheriff Duncan at 8. Be good, folks. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
One time for the bass, alright. Back in the day we used to live Charlotte Street. Just learn to walk and speak. Me woulda grab a bucket, 2 stick of milk in and gone in the yard and beat. Miss Paul used to suck up she teeth. We didn't kick as the music sweet. You could hear me little voice in Regent Street, but I'm still in the game. On the stage I'm keeping the flame. Used to jump with Leon and Shane. We used to make enough nights in the neighborhood. Get vexed and call over Dwayne. Tell them music run in me vein. Yesterday. One time for the bass, alright. Back in the day we used to live Charlotte Street. Just learn to walk and speak. Me woulda grab a bucket, 2 stick of milk in and gone in the yard and beat. Miss Paul used to suck up she teeth. We didn't kick as the music sweet. You could hear me little voice in Regent Street, but I'm still in the game. On the stage I'm keeping the flame. Used to jump with Leon and Shane. We used to make enough nights in the neighborhood. Get vexed and call over Dwayne. Tell them music run in me vein. Yesterday.